Okay, fellow linguists, we're here to become better than other people, to be our best that we can. Let's do it that way. Um, we have real facts on the ground who need good services, and that means that you're overwhelmed. What am I talking about? Uh, in Pike County, where Troy University is, we have one deaf child receiving interpreting services, and that child is in his first year of learning language, and he's 6 or about 6. How does that happen? That happens because mom and dad don't know sign language, probably did not identify the child early. Maybe they, got past the age of 2 before they even decided there was something wrong. It happens. It happens enough that the estimate is, I think, 25 such cases in Alabama, and then multiply that across the population of the United States, probably 1,000. Let's just guess that given all things, we're looking at a thousand kids either currently in that situation or who have recently graduated from high school but started their schooling experience without a language. You're the interpreter for that kid. What do? You get help. And you do the best that you can because you're the one who can do it better than anyone else because no one else has gotten training, including the teacher of the deaf for some reason, and I don't know why. We're trying to work and improve that, and the first step to doing that is this course. So what's going on? This is just a short, rah-rah booster here. You took linguistics already. You're supposed to have already taken linguistics, and you should remember that linguistics is divided into these kinds of things. We have the phonemics, what muscles move to make language parts. We don't study that overly because we don't need to know that. But we're aware that you can't make language if you can't move. At least not with technology so far. It may be something that we can hook up to the brain later on that will resolve some of these things, help us with maybe comatose patients. I don't know, but right now, if you can't move muscles, you can't communicate. You can't use language. Then we have the phonology. How is that different? Phonology is the pieces produced by the muscle movement. So the hand shape movement, palm orientation, location, the vowel sounds, consonant sounds, and I don't need to go in further description of that. That's your cueing course that you learn more about how speech sounds are made. We're studying deaf kids, so we're not really worried about speech sounds, although the teachers of the deaf are overly concerned about that, my opinion. And then we get to morphology. Right, following with me here? Um, so that's more of the no, it's the meaning, pieces of meaning. So if I have a word like, well, I was going to say catastrophe, and we have a cat, no, that's not how it's divided for that word. So let's say, what was the typical, so we have cat and s, right? More than one of the thing before, just add s. Well, you just add s, except that in the case of horse and horse well, horse is already spelled with an e. But I'm talking about speech sounds anyway. For ASL morphology, so if I have a beginning location and an ending location, so I have directionality or I have sequence of source, beginning and ending locations. That is directionality, is a way of saying it. So I have the subject position and the object position for the sign to give. You give to me. I distribute to more than one, so I have not only location of origin, but I have a plural sweep that indicates more than one, right? So I have cat, there they are, more than one cat. I have many cat, which is, there are many cats. Just English, I have to add that S no matter what. ASL, I don't add S unless I'm teaching English. Okay, hey, let's get through the list. So syntax was word order, right? So what word goes first in the English sentence? For ASL, some things can happen at the same time. Classifier is a great example of that. Complex morphology is classifiers, and so they kind of deal with both. Semantics, often signed as S meaning. Semantics. That's how I learned to sign. I'm sure there's a new sign by now, and I just don't know what it is. But semantics. That's meaning also. And you say, well, what? It's not to study the pieces of meaning. It's the study of the meanings in context. So, apple is one morpheme. It's not a pull, right? I'd like apple. I'd like two pulls. It's just it's one morpheme. One, the sign for morpheme is often done as an M, as though it was word. Hey, I didn't make up the signs. Okay. So that's Apple. But what does Apple mean? Am I talking about my phone? Am I talking about that pie? Am I talking about that thing on the tree? Am I talking about that record from the Beatles? Okay, so in different situations, that same word that is one piece of meaning has different meanings because of the context in which it's used. So I can study the piece of meaning and how they combine, and in that case, that's one morpheme and not very interesting to study any further. Or I can study the context in which that word is used, and for that word, that's a little bit more interesting. I can also see the relationship between Apple and Macintosh, which is a kind of computer, or it's that kind of thing on the tree. Oh, interesting. Still two things. Or so you said Johnny Rotten. Johnny Rotten is not an Apple, but he might have been on Apple Records, but he didn't win. Or Red Delicious, or other kinds of the fruit of apples. Or I could say Lisa, which is like the original before the Macintosh Apple. Not the original. It's like Apple 3, I guess is what that would be. You get the idea. So that's semantics. We're almost done with this pyramid. Pragmatics, which I don't have a sign for that, which is how I'm using language to do things, right? Practical application, practical application, using the language to do things. So am I trying to convince you? Am I trying to entertain you? Am I trying to, that really wasn't the right ASL sign, the good signs, bad signs. Am I trying to, warn you? What's the goal? And that's where good interpreting happens, right? And this is where you have to focus if you're interpreting for that kid. Okay, he doesn't have language. He needs to learn language. That's the goal. And he needs to know the point of the lesson. And maybe we do that with all the other kids, and maybe we go for a separate session, and maybe I need another person with me or just another person to do that and give them a break. So it's not just one person modeling language, because that's really hard for a kid to understand if they can't watch other people use language. A lot of good language learning is watching other people using it. And you need to figure out those situations. Okay, and style, that's the individual person in their and the ways that they do things. And so everyone's going to have their style, and it's possible to copy other people's style, and that is, people pay money to see those people who do a good job copying other people's styles. There's your linguistic pyramid. On the one side, you've got your, what is often signed as register variation. Not really the best sign. At first, it looks like you're giving yourself away freely to other people. For you, okay. And then the other thing is that it implies that there's only 5 things. So what is register variation? That is using language and it is using language, but it's how language changes depending on who's using it, where it is being used, how it is being used, and am I talking? Am I writing? Am I signing? Okay, topic, and what we're talking about. That was it. Okay, that's very powerful. And just because it happens all the time, and when you finish graduating from this program, you're going to encounter people who think that register variation is 5 things: intimate, casual, um, consultative, formal, and frozen. Those are not register, those are styles. Yes, people studied that, and it has a little bit of value. It tells me how to dress. But if you tell me that I have a formal interpreting session and I dress in my suit and tie, I don't know if I'm going to a doctor's lecture, um, like to other med students. Am I going to a church ceremony? Are we having a funeral? Those are very different communication events. A lot of different things happening. A lot of sad people in one, and I suppose there's some sad people in the other one too. Oh, I have to be in this lecture. Um, but maybe I don't know those words. I don't know what they're talking about. Or I know this person personally, and I'm going to be a mess myself if I interpret that I actually want to intend. Okay, so I need more information. Who's talking about what? I'm talking, you said expert talking about medicine. Okay, great. That's register variation, and that's what you want a good scheduler to tell you about the job. It's very important, very, very useful, much more than intimate, casual, consultative. Okay, register variation is much more powerful. Look it up in Wikipedia. Yes, now people have added the stylistics thing in that definition, but it's still not what register variation is. It's a side note now. Somehow it's worked its way back into register variation. It never was. It was a mistake. Somebody decided that's what it was back in the 80s. It got published, and then it gets copied and copied and copied. And I'm doing my job, Your Honor, to reduce how many times it gets copied incorrectly and that people understand the true value of register variation, and you are among the disciples for that. Okay, and so now we get to the so what. You should know, if you don't already know, that I'm a great fan of why. Why are we doing this? Why am I doing this? I'm helping you understand the big picture of this course. And I think I've laid it out in a good way. I hope that it's not overly overly overwhelming. I just want it to be partially overwhelming. I know, but this is what I need you to have experienced so that you know there's a ton of information out there, and most of it says what? Deaf kids go through the same milestones, accomplishments on their way to language fluency as hearing kids, except they do it through a signed and visual language if they're exposed to it. And when they are not exposed to that good language that's visual, then they will be behind. You want to teach your kid orally? Well, maybe down the line that's going to be illegal. I don't know. Because you are causing, almost determining, that your child is going to be language delayed. And it's because you don't know the language that you need to do for visually clear language. Okay, fine. So, what are those milestones? Well, obviously, we acquire these things pretty much in this order. Okay, right here. I'm pointing at this. You're seeing this thing, right? Good. I got to move muscles. If I can move muscles and I can make sounds, but I can't really control them because I can't see how to control them. But I can move my hands too. I can move those muscles, and I can see your hand shape, and I can see my hand shape, and I can make it match. That's part of the theory as to why signing, phonemics, and phonology happen earlier than hearing kids. That's the one advantage that we have for a sign language. That seems to happen 6 months to 9, 10 months if the kid is exposed to it and sees what's happening. Which is hard if you didn't catch that your kid is deaf until they're 2. You kind of miss that. But you're still going to have to go through that acquiring of controlling their muscles in order to make the hand shape movement location. This will happen more rapidly. They can catch up, but they can't catch up the whole language pyramid if they're delayed past puberty. You have a limited amount of time for this kid to succeed. So let's finish this up so you can get back to reading your research. We acquire the hand shapes, movement, location, great. And then pieces of meaning. How many pieces of meaning do the kids control? They control one piece of meaning at a time, but in the semantic context, the pointing might mean I want that or show me that, right? And then they go, and then they start to have syntax, and they point with a sign. There's the ball, or the ball is there. Well, what does that mean in context? It means I want the ball, or it might mean give me the ball. Or, you figure out that it has more meaning than just, oh, there is a ball. Oh, let me be Adam and identify all of the things in my environment, but interact with them none. Okay, so there's syntax, and that is we have one sign, then we have one sign usually with pointing, and then we have, or some other gestures, things, and then we have two signs together, and then we start to see word order emerge. And then we have that classifier thing gets acquired and fully controlled much later, like age 9. Okay, a lot of language is controlled by age 4, but not all of any given language is fully controlled by age 4. There's still something to learn. That's why they teach us until we're in 12th grade, our English classes, and then you have to take 2 more in college. I thought we were done. No, you're never done. You're never done learning your native language. And therefore, you're never done learning any other language for that matter. Even if it's dead, there's still always more to learn. So what's the point again? The point is that we're studying and seeing evidence that what is common sense? The common sense says, well, why would deaf kids learn differently than hearing kids if they're exposed to a language that they can access? And the answer is, well, they don't. If they have access, they hit everything at the same time. No worries, administrator. No worries, parents. Your kid's going to be fine unless we don't give him access, because then the delays happen. You know this because you have all this research. Please, you don't, it's PDFs at this point. Copy these, keep them. There will always be more. You should be able to find these things, but I scan these things because they're not all available on the internet, at least not right now, at least not free. If you want to buy all these books, great, have at it. And there's going to be more research later, but this basic stuff's already been done. So there's, this is the good research to refer to if you're trying to convince some administrator or a parent or, whatever, that it's not a bad idea to be bilingual. Here are some suggestions for, how we do it. That comes later in the course. Here's the research that shows that the milestones hit at the same time, but you have to have access to the language. Blah 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 blah. Give me money, or give money to that situation. Create a position. I need a language facilitator to focus on language acquisition for the deaf kid, preferably a deaf person themselves, maybe a couple or a group of deaf people who will be working on this and giving an intense language experience to this deaf kid. This deaf kid needs to be surrounded with other signing kids. Maybe it's a good idea to go to the school for the deaf. Maybe we need to set up a magnet program in the county where the 3 or 4 deaf kids can all be interacting with each other. Of course, you'll have a kindergartner and a 6th grader, and it's like, well, they don't have a lot to say, but that's okay. There we go. That's the why. Why do we do this? Because there's real people who need your services, and if you don't know what you're doing, there'll be one more life that's messed up for all the other people who interpret for them, and they don't know how to use their first language clearly enough to explain how they got hurt, or what that person stole from them, or, their legal and medical situations are very complex because you're trying to get a history of what happened. Right? That's true for both, and for that matter, psychological discussions. So if you don't have a good language, you're not going to have the good ability to explain what happened, or explain your thoughts, or explain much of anything. This makes a big deal difference for people. So you need to be skilled in the language, but you also need to be able to recognize when other people don't have those skills and how you can adjust. So that's part of the course. And we're going to learn a whole bunch of things in this course. Should it be a graduate level course? Of course, it should all be graduate level. You're learning more than a lot of other people learn because you're in a business where you get in between what people are thinking and doing and what other people let them do, right? You're involved in communications, job interviews, all kinds of things. It's not your business, but without you there, their business doesn't happen, and their business happens with other people, hearing people. That's enough for now. I'll see you later. Have fun storming the castle. Bye-bye.